Hi, welcome to the Frugal Frau. I'm Suki, your host, and today we're going to show you how to prepare a piece of rough cut lumber for use in your project. Now, what we're going to do is show you how to do this with only hand tools. You can see this is quite rough here, but you can turn it into a nice smooth piece of wood with a very few hand tools. And we're going to show you how to do that. Now you might say, well, why do you want to just use hand tools? Well, there's lots of reasons. Well, maybe you don't like the dust, or you live in an environment where you can't really make a lot of dust. Or maybe you live in an apartment or a small house close to somebody else and they don't want to hear your power tool noises. Or simply you don't like using power tools, or you can't invest a whole lot of money in fancy power tools, but you can perhaps get a hold of a few good hand tools, and then you're good to go. And not only that, remember our forebears did this all by hand and they created some beautiful work, and you can too. But before we get started, please like, subscribe, and comment. It helps the channel out. Thank you very much. First, smooth off your long edges using a plane. Tom has chosen to use his jack plane. Other planes would probably work just as well, but really the choice is yours. At this point, it is not necessary to get it 100% square, so Tom is simply eyeballing it. Next, you'll probably want to get out any cups that are in the wood, and so he is simply planing off this because there was a slight cup in the middle of this board. And this just gets it generally flat. Notice that we have chosen a fairly imperfect board. It has a huge knot in it. This is okay. You can still work with it. Tom has gotten the cupping out, and now he is smoothing this first side of the board. It is from this side that he will determine the thickness of the board. So you do need to smooth your one side that you're going to be measuring your thickness off of first. Tom now uses his marking gauge to mark the exact depth of the board. He runs it along the back edge that he has already smoothed out. He will do this on the other long edge, and here he is doing it along one of the short edges. So be sure to mark all 4 edges so that when you plane down, you do not go past this line. It is helpful to mark your scratched lines with a pencil so that you can see them a little more easily before you begin planing down the board to the desired thickness. Okay, Tom is going to start planing down the board to the desired thickness, and he will do the edges first so that he can plane the middle down without actually going past the mark line. Again, he's just using his jack plane, and I think he's using the jack plane for the entire project, just to show you that you don't need 20 different planes for such a project. He just continues doing this, and notice how he uses different wedges and things to help hold the board down so that he doesn't have to have the hold down on top of the surface which he wants to plane. Just get creative with your dogs and with wedges, etc., and that will help you hold the board down securely while you do this. With the edges planed down to the line, he now will cross-cut with the jack plane across the grain, and he has the blade set a little more aggressively so he can quickly get this material off. If you had one, you could use a scrub plane, although be careful because a scrub plane has a much higher angle blade and it will take a lot more off at once, and you do not want to go past your lines. All right, getting the knot area down to the right thickness is a little harder because it's much denser there. Take short, quick strokes and also change direction if necessary because the grain typically changes many directions across a knot. Before doing the final smoothing on this face of the board, which in our case is the front face because we always do the back face first, Tom lubricates the bottom of his jack plane. Always wipe in the direction of the blade rather than against the cutting surface. It saves your polishing bundle and also your fingers. We simply have a stuffed stock soaked in WD-40 for this purpose. At this point, periodically check to see how smooth and flat your board is on this side. You can actually use the edge of this large jack plane for that purpose, or you could use some other straight edge. It really doesn't matter. He uses the jack plane here. Now it is time to get the edges flat and perfectly square with both surfaces of the board. Tom's just using his jack plane to clean off this other edge. Eyeballing it. And now checking it with the little square. And he will find high spots and remove those. Now it is time to get the board down to the exact width that you would like to have it. This board is close, so he simply makes a measuring mark and then he's going to set a panel gauge to that exact mark. And then he will draw a line with that panel gauge down the entire length of the board and then plane the board down to that line. With the gauge set, he can now draw that line, and he likes to do it at an angle like this with the board securely snug against the dog in the bench. And this is just a close-up of that line for you to see. Now he will just begin planing down to that line, and you can see our cat Findus in the background. He occasionally visits the shop and plays with spills, etc. And this is just a close-up view of that final smoothing and squaring up of that edge. Tom just uses his bench square to check that the long edge is square with the short edge, and it's not, so he's going to plane down a little bit where it wasn't quite square. Alright, he keeps just making some final checks, and looks like it's all square now.